The Life Divine by Sri Aurobindo. Chapter 26. The Ascending Series of Substance. There is a self that is of the essence of matter. There is another inner self of life that fills the other. There is another inner self of mind. There is another inner self of truth knowledge. There is another inner self of bliss. Taittiriya Upanishad. They climb Indra like a ladder. As one mounts peak after peak, there becomes clear the much that has still to be done. Indra brings consciousness of that as the goal. Like a hawk, a kite, he settles on the vessel and upbears it. In his stream of movement he discovers the rays, for he goes bearing his weapons. He cleaves to the ocean surge of the waters. A great king, he declares the fourth status. Like a mortal purifying his body, like a war horse galloping to the conquest of riches, he pours, calling through all the sheath, and enters these vessels. Rig Veda. If we consider what it is that most represents to us the materiality of matter, we shall see that it is its aspects of solidity, tangibility, increasing resistance, firm response to the touch of sense. Substance seems more truly material and real in proportion as it presents to us a solid resistance, and by virtue of that resistance, a durability of sensible form on which our consciousness can dwell. In proportion as it is more subtle, less densely resistant and enduringly seizable by the sense, it appears to us less material. This attitude of our ordinary consciousness towards matter is a symbol of the essential object for which matter has been created. Substance passes into the material status in order that it may present to the consciousness which has to deal with it durable, firmly seizable images on which the mind can rest and base its operations, and which the life can handle with at least a relative surety of permanence in the form upon which it works. Therefore, in the ancient Vedic formula, earth, type of the more solid states of substance was accepted as the symbolic name of the material principle. Therefore, too, touch or contact is for us the essential basis of sense. All other physical senses, taste, smell, hearing, sight, are based upon a series of more and more subtle and indirect contacts between the percipient and the perceived. Equally, in the Sankhya classification of the 5 elemental states of substance, from ether to earth, we see that their characteristic is a constant progression from the more subtle to the less subtle, so that at the summit we have the subtle vibrations of the ethereal, and at the base the grosser density of the earthly or solid elemental condition. Matter, therefore, is the last stage known to us in the progress of pure substance towards a basis of cosmic relation in which the first word shall be not spirit but form, and form in its utmost possible development of concentration, resistance, durably gross image, mutual impenetrability, the culminating point of distinction, separation, and division. This is the intention and character of the material universe. It is the formula of accomplished divisibility. And if there is, as there must be in the nature of things, an ascending series in the scale of substance from matter to spirit, it must be marked by progressive diminution of these capacities most characteristic of the physical principle, and a progressive increase of the opposite characteristics, which will lead us to the formula of pure spiritual self-extension. This is to say that they must be marked by less and less bondage to the form, more and more subtlety and flexibility of substance and force, more and more interfusion, interpenetration, power of assimilation, power of interchange, power of variation, transmutation, unification. Drawing away from durability of form, we draw towards eternity of essence. Drawing away from our poise in the persistent separation and resistance of physical matter, we draw near to the highest divine poise in the infinity, unity, and indivisibility of spirit. Between gross substance and pure spirit substance, this must be the fundamental antinomy. in matter, chit or conscious force, masses itself more and more to resist and stand out against other masses of the same conscious force. In substance of spirit, pure consciousness images itself freely in its sense of itself, with an essential indivisibility and a constant unifying interchange as the basic formula even of the most diversifying play of its own force. Between these two poles, there is the possibility of an infinite gradation. These considerations become of great importance when we consider the possible relation between the divine life and the divine mind of the perfected human soul, and the very gross and seemingly undivine body or formula of physical being in which we actually dwell. That formula is the result of a certain fixed relation between sense and substance from which the material universe has started. But as this relation is not the only possible relation, so that formula is not the only possible formula. Life and mind may manifest themselves in another relation to substance and work out different physical laws, other and larger habits, even a different substance of body with a freer action of the sense, a freer action of the life, a freer action of the mind. Death, division, mutual resistance and exclusion between embodied masses of the same conscious life force are the formula of our physical existence. The narrow limitation of the play of the senses, the determination within a small circle of the field, duration and power of the life workings, the obscuration, lame movement, broken and bounded functioning of the mind are the yoke which that formula, expressed in the animal body, has imposed upon the higher principles. But these things are not the sole possible rhythm of cosmic nature. There are superior states. There are higher worlds. And if the law of these can, by any progress of man, and by any liberation of our substance from its present imperfections, be imposed on this sensible form and instrument of our being, then there may be even here a physical working of divine mind and sense, a physical working of divine life in the human frame, and even the evolution upon earth of something that we may call a divinely human body. The body of man also may someday come by its transfiguration. The Earth Mother too may reveal in us her Godhead. Even within the formula of the physical cosmos, there is an ascending series in the scale of matter, which leads us from the more to the less dense, from the less to the more subtle. Where we reach the highest term of that series, the most supra-ethereal subtlety of material substance or formulation of force, what lies beyond? Not a nihil, not a void, for there is no such thing as absolute void or real nullity. And what we call by that name is simply something beyond the grasp of our sense, our mind, or our most subtle consciousness. Nor is it true that there is nothing beyond, or that some ethereal substance of matter is the eternal beginning. For we know that matter and material force are only a last result of a pure substance and pure force, in which consciousness is luminously self-aware and self-possessing, and not, as in matter, lost to itself in an inconscient sleep and an inert motion. What then is there between this material substance and that pure substance? For we do not leap from the one to the other. We do not pass at once from the inconscient to absolute consciousness. There must be, and there are, grades between inconscient substance and utterly self-conscious self-extension, as between the principle of matter and the principle of spirit. All who have at all sounded those abysses are agreed and bear witness to this fact, that there are a series of subtler and subtler formulations of substance, which escape from and go beyond the formula of the material universe. Without going deeply into matters which are too occult and difficult for our present inquiry, we may say, adhering to the system on which we have based ourselves, that these gradations of substance, in one important aspect of their formulation in series, can be seen to correspond to the ascending series of matter, life, mind, supermind, and that other higher divine triplicity of Satchidananda. In other words, we find that substance in its ascension bases itself upon each of these principles and makes itself successively a characteristic vehicle for the dominating cosmic self-expression of each in their ascending series. Here in the material world, everything is founded upon the formula of material substance. Sense, life, thought found themselves upon what the ancients call the earth power. Start from it, obey its laws, accommodate their workings to this fundamental principle, limit themselves by its possibilities. And if they would develop others, have even in that development to take account of the original formula, its purpose, and its demand upon the divine evolution. The sense works through physical instruments, the life through a physical nerve system and vital organs. The mind has to build its operations upon a corporeal basis and use a material instrumentation. Even its pure mental workings have to take the data so derived as a field and as the stuff upon which it works. There is no necessity in the essential nature of mind, sense, life, that they should be so limited. For the physical sense organs are not the creators of sense perceptions, but themselves the creation, the instruments, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic sense. The nervous system and vital organs are not the creators of life's action and reaction, but themselves the creation, the instruments, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic life force. The brain is not the creator of thought, but itself the creation, the instrument, and here a necessary convenience of the cosmic mind. The necessity then is not absolute, but teleological. It is the result of a divine cosmic will in the material universe, which intends to posit here a physical relation between sense and its object, establishes here a material formula and law of conscious force, and creates by it physical images of conscious being to serve as the initial, dominating and determining fact of the world in which we live. It is not a fundamental law of being, but a constructive principle necessitated by the intention of the spirit to evolve in a world of matter. In the next grade of substance, the initial, dominating, determining fact is no longer substantial form and force, but life and conscious desire. Therefore, the world beyond this material plane must be a world based upon a conscious, cosmic, vital energy, a force of vital seeking and a force of desire and their self-expression, and not upon an inconscient or subconscious will taking the form of a material force and energy. All the forms, bodies, forces, life movements, sense movements, thought movements, developments, culminations, self-fulfillments of that world must be dominated and determined by this initial fact of conscious life, to which matter and mind must subject themselves, must start from that, base themselves upon that, be limited or enlarged by its laws, powers, capacities, limitations. And if mind there seeks to develop yet higher possibilities, still it must then too take account of the original vital formula of desire force, its purpose and its demand upon the divine manifestation. So too with the higher gradations. The next in the series must be governed by the dominating and determining factor of mind. Substance there must be subtle and flexible enough to assume the shapes directly imposed upon it by mind, to obey its operations, to subordinate itself to its demand for self-expression and self-fulfillment. The relations of sense and substance, too, must have a corresponding subtlety and flexibility, and must be determined not by the relations of physical organ with physical object, but of mind with the subtler substance upon which it works. The life of such a world would be the servant of mind, in a sense of which our weak mental operations and our limited, coarse and rebellious vital faculties can have no adequate conception. There, mind dominates as the original formula. Its purpose prevails. Its demand overrides all others in the law of the divine manifestation. At a yet higher reach, supermind, or intermediately principles touched by it, or still higher, a pure bliss, a pure conscious power, or pure being, replace mind. And we enter into those ranges of cosmic existence which to the old Vedic seers were the worlds of illuminated divine existence, and the foundation of what they termed immortality, and which later Indian religions imaged in figures like the Brahmaloka or Goloka, some supreme self-expression of the being as spirit, in which the soul, liberated into its highest perfection, possesses the infinity and beatitude of the eternal Godhead. The principle which underlies this continually ascending experience and vision, uplifted beyond the material formulation of things, is that all cosmic existence is a complex harmony, and does not finish with the limited range of consciousness in which the ordinary human mind and life is content to be imprisoned. Being, consciousness, force, substance, descend and ascend a many-runged ladder, on each step of which of its primal reality. For the more subtle is also the more powerful. One might say the more truly concrete. It is less bound than the gross. It has a greater permanence in its being, along with a greater potentiality, plasticity, and range in its becoming. Each plateau of the hill of being gives to our widening experience a higher plane of our consciousness and a richer world for our existence. But how does this ascending series affect the possibilities of our material existence? It would not affect them at all if each plane of consciousness, each world of existence, each grade of substance, each degree of cosmic force were cut off entirely from that which precedes and that which follows it. But the opposite is the truth. The manifestation of the Spirit is a complex weft, and in the design and pattern of one principle, all the others enter as elements of the spiritual whole. Our material world is the result of all the others. For the other principles have all descended into matter to create the physical universe. And every particle of what we call matter contains all of them implicit in itself. Their secret action, as we have seen, is involved in every moment of its existence and every movement of its activity. And as matter is the last word of the descent, so it is also the first word of the ascent. As the powers of all these planes, worlds, grades, degrees are involved in the material existence, so are they all capable of evolution out of it. It is for this reason that material being does not begin and end with gases and chemical compounds and physical forces and movements, with nebulae and suns and earths, but evolves life, evolves mind, must evolve eventually supermind and the higher degrees of the spiritual existence. Evolution comes by the unceasing pressure of the supramaterial planes on the material, compelling it to deliver out of itself their principles and powers, which might conceivably otherwise have slept imprisoned in the rigidity of the material formula. This would even so have been improbable, since their presence there implies a purpose of deliverance. But still, this necessity from below is actually very much aided by a kindred superior pressure. Nor can this evolution end with the first meager formulation of life, mind, supermind, spirit, conceded to these higher powers by the reluctant power of matter. For as they evolve, as they awake, as they become more active and avid of their own potentialities, the pressure on them of the superior planes, a pressure involved in the existence and close connection and interdependence of the worlds, must also increase in insistence, power and effectiveness. Not only must these principles manifest from below in a qualified and restricted emergence, but also from above they must descend in their characteristic power and full possible efflorescence into the material being. The material creature must open to a wider and wider play of their activities in matter. And all that is needed is a fit receptacle, medium, instrument. That is provided for in the body, life, and consciousness of man. Certainly, if that body, life, and consciousness were limited to the possibilities of the gross body, which are all that our physical senses and physical mentality accept, there would be a very narrow term for this evolution, and the human being could not hope to accomplish anything essentially greater than his present achievement. But this body, as ancient occult science discovered, is not the whole even of our physical being. This gross density is not all of our substance. The oldest Vedantic knowledge tells us of 5 degrees of our being: the material, the vital, the mental, the ideal, the spiritual or beatific. And to each of these grades of our soul there corresponds a grade of our substance, a sheath, as it was called in the ancient figurative language. A later psychology found that these 5 sheaths of our substance were the material of 3 bodies: gross physical, subtle, and causal, in all of which the soul actually and simultaneously dwells, although here and now we are superficially conscious only of the material vehicle. But it is possible to become conscious in our other bodies as well. And it is in fact the opening up of the veil between them, and consequently between our physical, psychical, and ideal personalities, which is the cause of those psychic and occult phenomena that are now beginning to be increasingly, though yet too little and too clumsily, examined, even while they are far too much exploited. The old Hatha Yogins and Tantrics of India had long ago reduced this matter of the higher human life and body to a science. They had discovered 6 nervous centers of life in the dense body, corresponding to 6 centers of life and mind faculty in the subtle. And they had found out subtle physical exercises by which these centers, now closed, could be opened up. The higher psychical life proper to our subtle existence entered into by man, and even the physical and vital obstructions to the experience of the ideal and spiritual being could be destroyed. It is significant that one prominent result claimed by the Hatha Yogins for their practices, and verified in many respects, was a control of the physical life force which liberated them from some of the ordinary habits or so-called laws thought by physical science to be inseparable from life in the body. Behind all these terms of ancient psychophysical science lies the one great fact and law of our being, that whatever be its temporary poise of form, consciousness, power in this material evolution, there must be behind it, and there is, a greater, a truer existence, of which this is only the external result and physically sensible aspect. Our substance does not end with the physical body. That is only the earthly pedestal, the terrestrial base, the material starting point. As there are behind our waking mentality vaster ranges of consciousness, subconscious and superconscious to it, of which we become sometimes abnormally aware. So there are behind our gross physical being other and subtler grades of substance with a finer law and a greater power which support the denser body, and which can, by our entering into the ranges of consciousness belonging to them, be made to impose that law and power on our dense matter, and substitute their purer, higher, intenser conditions of being for the grossness and limitation of our present physical life and impulses and habits. If that be so, then the evolution of a nobler physical existence, not limited by the ordinary conditions of animal birth and life and death, of difficult alimentation and facility of disorder and disease, and subjection to poor and unsatisfied vital cravings, ceases to have the appearance of a dream and chimera, and becomes a possibility founded upon a rational and philosophic truth, which is in accordance with all the rest that we have hitherto known, experienced, or been able to think out about the overt and secret truth of our existence. So it should rationally be, for the uninterrupted series of the principles of our being and their close mutual connection is too evident for it to be possible that one of them should be condemned and cut off, while the others are capable of a divine liberation. The ascent of man from the physical to the supramental must open out the possibility of a corresponding ascent in the grades of substance to that ideal or causal body which is proper to our supramental being. And the conquest of the lower principles by supermind, and its liberation of them into a divine life and a divine mentality, must also render possible a conquest of our physical limitations by the power and principle of supramental substance. And this means the evolution not only of an untrammeled consciousness, a mind and sense not shut up in the walls of the physical ego, or limited to the poor basis of knowledge given by the physical organs of sense, but a life power liberated more and more from its mortal limitations, a physical life fit for a divine inhabitant. And in the sense not of attachment or of restriction to our present corporeal frame, but an exceeding of the law of the physical body, the conquest of death, and earthly immortality. For from the divine bliss, the original delight of existence, the Lord of immortality comes, pouring the wine of that bliss, the mystic soma, into these jars of mentalized living matter. Eternal and beautiful, he enters into these sheaths of substance for the integral transformation of the being and nature.